welcome to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet, and I want to wish you a happy new year. Today is the 2nd of January, and hopefully your New Year's is starting out well. All your resolutions are working well so far. I'm 2 days in, and my resolutions are working right now. So I did a workout this morning. That was my first resolution. So I'm trying to start off well. And today we are going to discuss mine and Janet's passion. For you guys that follow us on Health Solutions, you know that Janet and I talk hormones all day long with people all over the world, and we absolutely love it. It's a passion of ours, and we feel one of the reasons it's a passion is because our patients get better. They feel better, they look better, and we work with providers all over the nation. And we met Tonia Rainier, Dr. Tonia Rainier. She's a naturopath. We met her down in Phoenix a few months, actually last month, 2 months ago, I guess, in November. And we're excited to have her on our podcast to discuss hormones. So Tonia, welcome to our show.
Hi, nice to be here.
Hello. So tell us a little bit about your background and tell us about how you got into prescribing hormones.
Well, I work at Natural Heart Doctor in Phoenix and love it there. Learning so much more about treating heart disease. We've got 2 cardiologists on board that are just amazing, and other naturopaths. So we treat a variety of areas because, you know, the whole body is so interconnected, from the thyroid to the hormones to the adrenals, the heart, the gut. You know, just we go in depth on our testing, and it really helps us see the big picture of our patients.
Awesome. So speaking of, and Dr. Jack Wolfson is awesome. We met him. We've interviewed him on our podcast, Natural Heart Doctor. So speaking of hormones and hearts, so let's just go ahead and get into it. There is a misnomer out there that hormones, specifically testosterone, can cause heart attacks. I don't want to blindside you with that question, but I'm sure you've gotten it before. So educate us about that, about testosterone and heart attacks.
So the main thing with testosterone is you have to monitor hematocrit, hemoglobin, basically the thickness of the blood. And as long as you're keeping that in check and you're doing phlebotomy, testosterone is very safe for hearts and basically gives people their lives back.
One thing I like to say about testosterone causing heart attacks is let's just think rational about it. If high testosterone alone caused heart attacks, 19-year-old men would have heart attacks, right? Yep. So that's one of the rational thoughts I tell men when they are in their 50s, 60s, 70s and on testosterone, and their primary care doctor told them that they might have a heart attack because testosterone can cause that. I just tell them if that's the case, then how come 19-year-olds men don't have heart attacks? Janet, you have a comment?
I do. So I think when this started happening, this story of causing heart attacks, from my memory bank, I'm pulling that it was during the studies of testosterone for men. And really those studies that when they were coming out with the products like androgel, men of the age group that were being studied, if we looked at what they were testing and they were taking the results from, they may have already had underlying cardiac problems. So I think that kind of, got ran together that somebody had a heart attack, but that would be true in the normal population, but it doesn't mean that was the cause of the problem, i.e. rather it could have been just their overall health risk. I mean, is that kind of your memory bank too? Because I feel like that story has been out there for quite some time.
I agree. And I think dosing, a lot of times people think if a little is good, a lot is better. And, you never want to overdo any good thing.
Well, and you see that a lot with, unfortunately, athletes, mostly the bodybuilder, gym rats, meathead types that totally abuse testosterone, not just testosterone, but other anabolics. They get lumped into all one category. And, those guys are, they're having heart attacks in their 30s and 40s. And then, testosterone gets associated with that. But what we do when we replace testosterone is we replace it to a natural level already. We don't go, a little, if little is good, then 20 times, 30 times, 100 times is better. We don't do it that way. We make sure their levels are where they should have been when, they were producing testosterone normally, correct?
Yeah, physiological dose is super important.
So tell us, Tonia, some labs that you check when a female comes into your office, and what kind of labs are you checking for overall hormone health?
Oh my gosh. So yeah, we're definitely checking, all your thyroid markers, including reverse T3, free T3, free T4, and that is definitely overlooked by conventional medicine. Definitely AM cortisol, and then all the other hormone markers. So SHBG is really important to know how much. A lot of people are high. I'm seeing 50% of my patients high in SHBG, which basically binds up your hormones, and so you can't use them efficiently. So, seeing all the different hormone parameters, the SHBG, the free testosterone, the DHT, how much you're converting to more of the anger or acne producing androgens, looking at all those. And estrogen is even important for men, keeping that at 25, because that affects your sleep and mood. So even estrogen is important in men. So we look at all those things.
Well, and I would say not just even as estrogen is important in men, but especially estrogen is important in men. And we see it quite often in a certain subset of patients that they want to go on, testosterone and estrogen blockers. And estrogen is really important for cardiovascular health for men, to maintain erections for men, for libido for men. And we don't want to lower estrogen. And if you have too much estrogen, because testosterone does convert to estrogen, to estradiol, if you have too much estrogen, there might be other underlying factors going on. You don't need an estrogen blocker to actually stop that. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think estrogen is very important. If it gets too high, you want to keep everything optimal. And with functional medicine, that using lab parameters that optimize the patient rather than just sick reference ranges that labs use, because they're basically taking the whole population into their reference ranges, and you have a lot of sick people in those reference ranges. So as a functional medicine provider or naturopath, that we're using optimal lab ranges for our patients.
Well, I think that's what's important, and that's why it's important to work with doctors like yourself who know how to interpret what labs to order, like you mentioned, free testosterone versus just total testosterone, but also how to interpret those labs, because what's normal and what's optimal is two different things, and not just on testosterone or not just on estrogen, but thyroid. Talk about optimal levels of thyroid and what the gold standard is of thyroid versus how you treat thyroid.
Yeah, so I like to see TSH below 2. I'd like to see T3, free T3 at 3.2 to 4.5. That's a functional medicine range. But even if those are optimized, if you're throwing a bunch of active T3 into reverse T3, which conventional medicine doesn't even look at, then you're not getting the benefit of that energy or that thyroid hormone. So very important to test.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And tell us, if you do have someone with high reverse T3, what, as a functional medicine doctor, what are some things that you do to help them not convert into reverse T3? And you know what? Let's just talk about what reverse T3 is. Talk about what reverse T3 is first.
So basically, you have T4 that the body produces, and then it's activated into T3 when the body needs it. And so that, basically manages all the energy of your body, lots of different, chemical reactions in your body. The T3 is the active form of thyroid and gives you your energy. When your body is sick, so when you're sick with a virus, or you have an underlying viral infection somehow, or you're under a lot of stress, the body will throw, or you're being overdosed with T4 from conventional medicine. I see that a lot. So they're overdosed with T4, their TSH looks great, but their body's throwing all that extra T4 into reverse T3, and they're having all these symptoms of, hyperthyroidism, but their TSH looks great in conventional medicine. So we actually lower the dose of T4, get that normal, and maybe add in a very small dose of T3 to help manipulate and get those labs into better parameters and making the patient feel better.
And reverse T3, help me out if this is true. From what I understand, reverse T3 is actually a hormone of hibernation, a mammalian hormone of hibernation. So like when bears hibernate in the winter, they have a lot of reverse T3, which actually slows their metabolism down so they can live for 3 months without needing food. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like a protection mechanism. Yeah. Slows the body down. Yep.
So obviously, as humans, if we have a lot of reverse T3, our metabolism is going to be really slow and we're going to feel fatigued and have all those low thyroid type symptoms. So that again is important, is why it's important to go to a functional medicine doctor like yourself. Janet, you had a comment?
I do, because I get a lot of questions about what supplements should I use to help with my thyroid. And I'm very skeptical about making a recommendation without knowing all the labs and what the goals are. So I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, because I get people that are taking iodine a lot or selenium, and I'm just always a little uncomfortable about throwing trace minerals at somebody if they don't need them or if they do need them. So let's have that little discussion about how you approach that.
So I actually measure a patient's urine random iodine, and if it is low, I do recommend iodine. So specifically, well, I first always recommend food to see if we can fix it through food. So, getting the seaweed in, natural sources of iodine. If we can't fix it with food, then I like the product Violet iodine. It's molecular iodine. So definitely helpful for women and the thyroid.
And is that going to be short term or lifelong? Because I got in situations where people actually had way too high of iodine because of all the supplementation that they were taking. So do you check in, after so long, or just periodically with their thyroid panels? How do you do that?
Initially, I like to do the labs every 2 months until we find basically a steady state that, symptoms are gone and the labs look good. And then once we establish that basically homeostasis, then just checking in once a year. So you don't have to stay on iodine your whole life. You can just get it through your foods eventually. Sometimes the body just needs a little bump or a little help to get through and help modulate its own system. And then it can work effectively on its own.
And I like that recommendation. I think supplements are just that. They're meant to supplement a good, healthy diet already. So if we can get it from real food, I much prefer that over supplementation, because there's so many other things, like you say, in seaweed, for instance. There's not just iodine in there. There's so many other things that are in there that are not going to be in one supplement.
Yeah, as a naturopathic doctor, that's one thing that we've learned is, plants are a lot smarter than we think. And right. So when you start taking specific constituents out of a plant, you're missing out on all the other areas. So Dr. Yarnell, a famous herbalist, and he definitely recommends that whenever you're taking a specific supplement to always look at, say curcumin, that you always want to maybe take turmeric with it, that you want to take the natural source along with the constituent because the body or that plant can help modulate and communicate with your body much more effectively than just the one constituent.
Well, I think that's the whole problem with what we've done with big pharma. And when big pharma goes in and they found a plant that's worked for years to treat something, I like to use the example of white willow bark. White willow bark is one of the first plants that a big drug company, Bayer Aspirin, isolated acetylsalicylic acid. They isolated aspirin out of white willow bark. And they knew that Native Americans were using white willow bark to treat fevers, to treat inflammation, to treat pain, things like that. So they isolated the active ingredient out of it. Well, we don't know what we don't know. So we're just looking for this magic ingredient in there. So we say it's aspirin and acetylsalicylic acid. And then all of a sudden we give people aspirin, their ears are ringing, their stomachs are bleeding. They're having all these, kidney side effects, all these side effects where white willow bark never caused that. Well, why? Because white willow bark has other ingredients in there that might work synergistically and also might work to decrease the side effects. We only know what we know. So we don't know what we're not looking for. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to explain, but it's actually the paradox of big pharma trying to isolate an active ingredient out of a plant.
Yeah, I agree. That we've taken something that was given to us naturally and, I don't know, just taken pieces of it, thinking that we're smarter than nature.
Right.
No, we're not.
And there's example after example of drugs that we can use, because most drugs still come from plant sources. Some kind of natural source, but there's always a problem when we try to isolate that active ingredient from a plant source. Janet, do you have any comments on that?
No, I think that's a great analogy that, using something natural like food and to get our nutrients is far better than just trying to use a supplement. Because we even have friends that, they eat most of their food from, shakes and smoothies that they get from powder. And to me, you're missing out on what naturally could occur in those plants and food sources. So I like that too in the medicine side, because I've seen people with iodine levels that were actually toxic because they were supplementing so much. And really the answer I was looking for is eventually you need to get your sources from your food source and natural rather than taking a supplement in. So thank you for that, because I think that's kind of, we want to do a quick fix in our society and we forget about how we really we're meant to heal.
Exactly.
Well, and I think it would be pretty hard. I mean, help me out, Dr. Rainier, but I think it'd be pretty hard to eat too much seaweed to get too much iodine. Wouldn't it be?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think it'd be very difficult. Yeah. And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Just like Janet was talking about real food, you have all these, all these social media influencers that talk about maximizing protein. So then what people do is they go out and they use all these whey proteins and shakes and protein bars. And it's like, well, look I got my 200 grams of protein in a day. Well, yeah, but it's not in real food. And there's just so much other things we get in real food that we don't get in these supplements, whether it be protein or whether it be, iodine or acetylsalicylic acid. I mean, real food, real plants, real meat. Those are the good sources that are meant to nourish our body.
I agree. And, I love that Dr. Wolfson has put, different organ meats into his capsules, Kickstart My Heart, because that would be a natural source of organs, iron, copper, lots of vitamins and minerals. So, that is a very natural source of probably your best multivitamin out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk a little bit about what would you consider as a functional medicine naturopath? What would you consider? I know every patient's different, but in general, for women, what would you consider an optimal diet to optimize your hormones? What would you consider?
I mean, basically a plant-based diet with lean protein, fish, basically a paleo type diet, but within as many vegetables, specifically non-starchy vegetables as possible. And
what about for men? Any different for men?
I mean, I think men do need more protein than women. One of the most important things is the weight training. It's the exercise, but getting enough protein to sustain the muscle, but also doing the weight training. So I'm always amazed at my patients that weight train every day. Their testosterone is easily in the 1,000. So it definitely pays off.
Yeah, it is amazing. I've seen people go from the couch to eating better and strength training, and they can raise their testosterone 200 to 300 points just by getting off the couch. And I don't think people realize how important those things are. And some people think that, oh, well, the answer is I need hormones or I need testosterone or I need thyroid. And I'm not saying that's not a piece of the puzzle, but the reality of it is it's just a piece of the puzzle. You still need to be eating well. You still need to be active, and that includes strength training. When our bodies are sedentary, testosterone is a hormone of vitality. our body doesn't want to be vital if we're just sitting around on the couch drinking wine and eating Cheetos. But you start being active, then your body starts, producing more hormones because it wants you to be vital.
Yeah, I feel like making small changes, moving in the right direction, the body acts, but it wants to be healthy. It wants, like you said, be vital. That small changes can exponentially, times 10, improve the health of the body.
Since we are talking about diet, this is a question I get throughout, the beginning of the year. And I think for most Americans, we are stuck on the SAD diet, what the government put out as far as caloric intake. So how do you approach that? Because I obviously know that, my needs are much less or different than Shawn's versus even Shawn's diet versus his 19-year-old son. So, we can't put everybody in the box. So what's your approach to helping people with their caloric needs?
I mean, when you're eating real foods, your body will tell you when you're hungry or full. So you'll find that if you look at the calories when you stick to a whole food diet, that, you're getting half the calories of the SAD diet, just automatically. That once you get a lot of fiber in your food and protein and healthy fats, the body rebalances itself.
I agree with you so much. I sometimes will dare people. I dare them to eat too much real food. I mean, here's a good example. If you eat 4 Oreos, it's 100 calories, probably 100 plus calories. I bet you it's probably more like 150, 200. I don't know exactly. But a medium-sized apple is 100 calories. You know what? Most people could eat 10, 12, 15 Oreos. I could. I can only eat 1 apple, though. I mean, if I'm super hungry, maybe 2. Or steak. I dare somebody to eat too much steak. I dare them. You just can't do it. I mean, I'm a big eater. And unless I'm super hungry after a long training session, I can't eat more than 12 ounces of steak. It just you're full. But junk food, chips, junk food, donuts, that's why I don't buy them, because I could eat them. It'd be easy to get 3,000-4,000 calories in a day, easy with junk food. But with real food, very difficult.
And I think it's important to, like they do in Europe, where you drizzle your food with, organic olive oil, or you start your meal with olives or some kind of nuts instead of the breads or the alcohol that we start, at the restaurants, because that just makes you more hungry. You're creating more hunger. You're basically saying, yes, I want to gain weight.
Yeah. Right. You throw some natural fats in there, and it's satisfying. It has a lot of satiety.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons it's important. Jen, I always stress to people, eat those good things first. Eat your protein first. You start eating your protein first, and you're not going to want a bunch of extra junk. You're just not. So you eat your chicken, your fish, your steak first, and you're just not going to want to eat as much of that junk. And starchy carbs, for instance, too. You're not going to want as much of those.
I will say, for people that have some adrenal fatigue or HPA axis dysfunction, as they want to call it now, but they do need more carbs. They do need more like resistant starches to help with that blood sugar, because they don't have that cortisol to help boost that blood sugar back up. So those are the people that I don't like for them to do fasting or decrease their carbs, starchy carbs too much, that they need more of a level blood sugar throughout the day.
That's why it's so important to realize that, not one diet fits everybody. And I mean, Janet probably agrees with me. I mean, there are some diets that have just become religions, whether it be vegan, whether it be keto, whether it be carnivore. And you talk to those people, and they say, if you say anything that's, bad about keto, or you say that, oh no, carbs are good, oh my gosh, they just hammer you. But the reality of it is, you got to find out what diet works for you. And definitely, depending on, what kind of activity you have, or like you say, HPA axis dysfunction, you might need carbs. I know I need carbs, when I ride my bike longer, obviously, because I'm burning them. But, when I'm not as active, then I don't need as many carbs or I don't need as much food. I think we need to be better about monitoring our activities and eating around our activities. That's what we used to do centuries ago. When we hunt an animal all day long, then we'd gorge ourselves after we hunted the animal. And then maybe for 2 or 3 days, we might not have a lot of food, right?
Yeah, we're all so unique in what we need. And, everybody's different medical conditions dictate, different diets or different food, using food as medicine. And that's where a naturopathic doctor or functional medicine doctor comes in, is to help guide you through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tonia, as we wrap this podcast up, what would you say that you have a passion for?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I leave work sometimes and I'm just in tears, and I call my husband and just say, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. Just seeing people, the results that they get with natural medicine is amazing. And getting them off of pharma with Natural Heart Doctor has been just a wonderful experience for me. And, just gives me goosebumps every day with my job. I love it.
It is.
Yeah,
I will
getting
say
people
that
results.
Yeah, it is. Jen and I absolutely love what we do because our patients get better. And we've been in the traditional system before where we were, doing the regular dispensing pharmacy stuff. And not once did we ever have a patient thank us for, oh, well, thank you for giving me that cholesterol medication, or thank you for giving me that diabetes medication. Never did that happen. And we get patients that thank us every day for helping them feel better. And that's very, very rewarding for what we do.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
So Dr. Rainier, as we wrap this up, tell us the best way to get a hold of you. I'm streaming your website here.
Oh, so naturalheartdoctor.com
Would be the best one, naturalheartdoctor.com?
Yeah. So they have a great link that you can schedule a second opinion with me or any of the other docs there, a cardiologist or another naturopathic doctor. Yep. Perfect.
Janet, you have a question?
I do. So do you do online consultations with your clients as well? Because that seems
we
to be
do.
new. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Great to hear.
Is this the correct website right here?
That's it.
That's it right there. Natural Heart Doctor, Dr. Jack Wolfson. We met him. That's awesome. Well, Dr. Rainier, thank you for being on our podcast and for all your wisdom and knowledge. And, our goal of this podcast is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health. And you definitely helped us realize that goal. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
And enjoy the sunshine in Scottsdale.
I will. I'm going for a hike.
Be
right
thinking
now.
of us when it's foggy and dreary here in Washington State.
No.
All right. Thank you so much. And you have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Tune in Thursdays for our midweek podcast, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for listening.